All right, so clearly I got cut off on my last video, so we're just picking up where we left off. All right, so what is design? Design is an interactive decision-making process that produces plans by which resources are converted into products or systems that meet human needs and wants or solve problems. So you can see this definition is kind of a mishmash of a bunch of things. The end of that, meet human needs and want or solve problems, we're talking about technology, in our definition of technology. Then we have that interactive decision-making process. Again, that goes back to our engineering design process. And in the end, we are using resources and converting them into products. So that is essentially what design is. Using that process, changing things over to a product in order to advance technology. So what is principle of design? Principles of design are design rules regarding rhythm, balance, proportion, variety, emphasis, and harmony used to evaluate existing designs and guide the design process. So remember, I told you before, design principle and principle of design are two different things. It's very confusing, they're very closely related, but you have to make sure you keep them separate in your head. So design principle, or principles of design, are your rules. These are the rules that you follow in order to create a good product. And then we have design proposal, which is just a written plan of action for solutions to a proposed problem. So think about all the design challenges I give you. We are making a design proposal for that. I started off for you by giving you that background information and giving you the problem. And then you finish that proposal by defining the problem, coming up with your brainstorming, and then making a proposed solution. So that is your design proposal, is you're just proposing the solution before somebody starts to create it and test it and evaluate it. All right, so we're gonna go over, let me go ahead and click these so you can start typing, the 5 principles of design. Now, if you have taken art, Mr. Franson does it in his SciViz 1 class. Different classes go over principles of design. You might be familiar with some of these. There are tons of principles of design and elements of design out there. These are we're just going over the ones that we wanna focus on in this class. So you might know others, but this is what we need to know here. So principles of design, again, those rules that we have to follow in order to create an effective design. We have balance, proportion, rhythm, emphasis, and unity. So to go over each of them, first we're going to start with balance. So balance determines the visual weight of an object. And there's 2 different types. You have formal balance, which is symmetrical, or informal balance, which is asymmetrical. And you need to know that formal and symmetrical are interchangeable, and that informal and asymmetrical are interchangeable. So if we are looking at our pictures, on the left-hand side, we have 4 ice cream cones or triangles with circles. If we cut a line or draw a line right down the center where they have the dotted line and fold our paper in half, those things would match up perfectly. So that is your formal balance, your symmetrical balance. And this is what people typically think of when they hear the word balance. Is it weighted the same? So if it's weighted the exact same, if it looks the exact same on each side, it's symmetrical. When you hear the word balance, and next week when you're going to have to be looking up examples on your own for the project, we're not talking about literally things on a scale, things that are balanced. We're talking about visual balance. So look at the picture on the right. Now you see the 2 candles, 3 candles. If I draw a line right down the middle and fold it in half, they're not going to match up. So it's not symmetrical, but it does have a visual balance between them. So lots of things with design is just understanding the science of how your brain works. A lot of times I'm just going to tell you, your brain automatically functions this way. And that's just because there's science that proves behind it. So your brain naturally goes to visually appealing things. And in order for it to be visually appealing, you want to have some sort of balance. Symmetrical, yes, but asymmetrical is actually more appealing to our brain because it's not the same on each side. Instead, we're talking about the volume, the weight of each thing. So if you mathematically calculated the volume of the object on the left versus the 2 objects on the right, they would be similar or identical. So something tall and skinny weighs about the same as something short and fat that these 2 kind of represent. So even though they're not the same, they have balance informally by sharing the same amount of volume. All right, next we have proportion. So with proportion, we are talking about the size relationship of something. And it's just how size is compared within the object or within an image. So you can see clearly we're comparing the size of the man to the dog. And there is realistic and unrealistic proportion. clearly on the left. What do you think it is? We got realistic proportion. And then on the right is our unrealistic proportion, with the dog being larger than the man. Next, we have rhythm. And this is similar to music, so we all know rhythm in music, but now we're talking about it artistically. So the repetition within a design that gives the appearance that movement is taking place. And this one's harder for people to understand because we're not talking about actual movement. We're talking about movement of the eyes or understanding of movement. So on the left, the repetition of the rolling hills, we don't actually think they are moving, but they cause movement in your eyes because it naturally draws your eyes to go over and bump over the rolling hills to the back of the picture. So if it caused natural eye movement, it's rhythm with that repetition. The picture on the right with the ocean, this causes two different types of movements. We automatically understand it's the ocean because we picture the waves rolling in. So we're visualizing movement, but then it also, with that repetition, causes our eyes to naturally go to the back of the picture following the repetition. So it has visualization movement and eye movement. Next, we have emphasis. And emphasis is also referred to as point of focus. So those are interchangeable. And it's very easy to understand. It's just where your eye naturally goes to. So marks the location which most strongly draws the viewer's eye. So in this picture, what do you naturally go to? Your eye naturally goes to the fly. And emphasis can be accomplished in many different ways. It can be in color, it can be in size, it can be in shape. It doesn't matter. We could go on and on, but we're just covering the surface. We just want to know in emphasis, our eye naturally goes to one spot. And then lastly, we have unity. Unity refers to the ability to make components of a design seem as if they belong together or have an agreement. So there's 4 different types of unity, and this one's easy to understand for the fact that it makes things belong together, but you have to know why they belong together. And they belong together for one of these 4 reasons. So first, it can be achieved through similar shape. So they're all different sizes, but they're all squares. So they look as if they belong together. Our brain naturally thinks they go together. Second, we have through the use of space. So all different shapes, but now since they're overlapping, if things start to overlap, our brain automatically tries to group them together. So we see them as one group and we have that unity between the shapes. Third, through a common pattern. You can see the spaces all over the place, the shapes are all over the place, but because they all share the stripes, our brain again naturally associates a group together. So we have the unity. And then lastly, a common background. So again, the shapes all over the place, space all over the place. Now our patterns are all over the place, but because they all share that common background, our brain naturally thinks they belong together, so we have unity. So when you're identifying unity, not only do you have to tell me that there's unity, but you have to tell me which one of these 4 causes the unity. All right, so those are our 5 principles. And again, your principles are your rules. Those are what you must follow. You want to have unity, emphasis, balance. You may not have all of them, but you should have at least some of them. So next, it leads us to our elements of design, which are our tools. So principles are the rules, elements are the tools that you must use to follow the rules. So by having different colors, it helps us to make an emphasis. By having different shapes, it helps us to have unity. So these tools help us to follow those rules. And we will continue this in the next Edpuzzle.